Doop boo. Boo da bow. Billy, 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 bow. Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we'd like to thank our sponsor, Banquet Foods. We needed a hot meal and you're too depressed to use the stove? Choose Banquet.
I don't know how you could.
Hey man, if you need sodium and you need it now, Banquet's got your back.
I just feel like they're the cheap brand.
Of course they are. That's why we love them.
Was that really the intro you wanted?
Yes, it is. I wrote that earlier today.
What did you write that on?
My phone?
What medium was that? Walk me through that process. Did you open the Notes app or?
That's exactly what I did. I opened Samsung Notes and I typed it in.
God, if I could just have a gander at that note. Just want to scroll through all your notes now. Oh
man, it's there's a lot going on in there.
Mine too. It's a good tool though.
Yeah, but for real though, today we were talking about forgiveness. And the question now is, can Steven ever forgive me for my podcast crimes?
It's going to be tough. We'll see what happens.
How was your week?
Better than last week. It's been chill. I feel super apathetic, and I'm just kind of going with the flow. I feel like water. I'm going through rocks, and I'm very wet. I don't know, man. I'm just chilling. It's all right. How about you?
Also good. I don't know about if I'm water, but I'm doing good.
That's good. Are you fire?
Am I fire?
Pick an element.
Probably earth. I'm very sedentary.
You're an earth person. I was told by a very wise person that I'm wood. Also,
that's earth and water.
But I have fire elements. Now, the person I was...
Spicy wood.
It's called a Slim Jim. The person I was with, this person, he said he was metal. And only psychopaths could be metal.
Let's say that's just like earth. Extra.
I thought that was interesting, though, because it was actually this person's uncle. And his uncle, in front of his nephew, was like, "You are metal. You are actually a psychopath." And he didn't mean it like maliciously.
It just non-maliciously called him a psychopath.
Yeah, and the person, he was right. He was right.
Well, when you're not wrong, you're right. That's what we say here on the Trash Cats Trashcast. When you're not wrong, you're right.
And if you can't see it, we don't paint it.
Oh, that's a goddamn right, Steven. You have any honorable mentions for us this week?
I don't, man. I'm not in. Oh, you know what? I'll shout out India Burns at Skincraft. She just finished my back piece, and I'm
fully finished.
Yeah, fully finished.
Oh shit!
So happy with how it turned out. I loved it the whole way, but then there was like one small final touch that I was agonizing over for weeks, and I figured it out with the help of a few people, and she finished up, and it looks so fucking good, man. Really happy.
Now, this might be my lack of comprehension of how time works. I feel like you just get started on that. Has it been a full year already?
It's been a full year. I think I sat for like 50, 60 hours.
Wow.
Something like that. So got a few tattoos in between, and I'm starting on the next things. I got things scheming currently.
Oh, good.
But so yeah, shouts out to India Burns. Besides that, I've been having a lot of trouble being inspired lately, so no other honorable mentions this week.
Very fair.
What about you?
Also nothing, but yeah, no, I 100% feel the lack of being inspired. It's not so much that it's like not inspired, period. It's mostly just to do anything beyond work. Like, work has been actually very inspiring, and like I'm picking up new shit, and it's been in a very good way. But other than that, like, yeah, it hasn't been super fruitful.
See, I want to be a bitter old man and write right now. Like, when I'm sad, I want to write, and I would love to just be a bitter old man alone in the woods, tattooing my body and writing things. That sounds so nice right now.
Well, you're definitely on the right track.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, I believe in you. You can achieve your dreams and goals.
So what do we... I'm worried. I'm also worried I'm going to be very bitter about this topic. So what are we doing? Forgiveness.
So forgiveness.
How did we get here?
Based on last week, right? No, it wasn't even last week. It was the week before.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, it was a different episode. We were talking about forgiveness towards the end, and we realized it was karma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we realized that maybe it merited some more discussion, and I think it absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
I did find this short little passage that I do want to read to you. I think it's telling because I feel like what people think of forgiveness as is like, it's like a kindness we do unto others, or like, if you forgive someone, like you're letting them off the hook. But I think more and more people are understanding that that's not what it is.
Well, if we're going to be for real, I mean, at its root, right? I understand there's like the new age, we do it for us. Like you turn the other cheek to fix your jawbone, not to give them another cheek to strike.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is it is an active decision to grant someone else something.
Yes, but they don't actually receive anything.
Well, if you forgive someone and you don't tell them, that's not really forgiveness, right?
I don't agree with that. What's in a situation where someone wrongs you and you make the decision, I'm not going to talk to them anymore. You decide years later on in life that like, okay, look, I can't keep thinking about this and like this is replaying in my head. I'm going to forget it. I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to forgive. I'm not going to let this occupy my brain anymore. That's not giving them anything at all, but it is forgiving in the way that you're not holding that against them anymore.
I agree you're right, but I almost feel like there should be like two other words for forgiveness or like different versions because it is
very specific. Because
it is almost different to internally forgive versus externally. They're almost completely different.
I can somewhat see what you're saying. I feel like...
I bet there's German words for it.
I bet, yeah. They have words for everything.
Those Nazis are very specific.
But let me... Speaking of Nazis, let's talk about psychologists. I do have this passage here I want to read for you. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. Just as important as defining what forgiveness is, though, is understanding what forgiveness is not. Experts who study or teach forgiveness make clear that when you forgive, you do not gloss over or deny the seriousness of an offense against you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. Though forgiveness can help repair a damaged relationship, it doesn't obligate you to reconcile with the person who harmed you or release them from legal accountability. Instead, forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind and frees him or her from corrosive anger. While there is some debate over whether true forgiveness requires positive feelings towards the offender, experts agree that it at least involves letting go of deeply held negative feelings. In that way, it empowers you to recognize the pain you suffered without letting that pain define you, enabling you to heal and move on with your life.
Okay, that's very pleasant. I really don't like it, though.
Yeah, I think you're all fucking death and destruction, though, and I feel like that's the blinders you have on.
I agree, and that's why this is kind of challenging for me. And I would think to most people, how I'll probably talk about this today, it probably makes me sound like I'm constantly like fueled by hatred and vengeance. But I would like to think, or I know, like, you know me well enough. I'm not like actively like ruminating on people who have wronged me. Like I'm very quick to let go of things because I'm very apathetic also.
let me ask you this though. If we go through this passage I just read and replace all of the word forgiveness with letting go of something, does that change your opinion of it?
Honestly, if we go through this as it is, there's not that much I disagree with. I just don't like it, which I know is like very wishy-washy. But as a general rule, I don't... Like, I've been wronged by people. 10 years ago, let's say I was cheated on. I would have been very angry. And at that point in my life, it probably affected like the next couple years, right? Like, fucked me up. I don't think I would be disappointed like an old parent who doesn't understand their kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I might be disappointed, probably be a little angry. But I don't I feel like I'm pretty quick to forgive unless it's truly something I feel is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some things aren't meant to be forgiven.
That's another point that some people go on to talk about within the realm of forgiveness is, like, are there things that can be truly unforgivable? And, I mean, like, that depends on the individual who has to make that decision, I think. Of course, like, the answer is going to be different to each person. Like, I can obviously see where there are some things that, like, yeah. Like, and I like the thought process of, you know, feel free to forgive, but just don't forget. Because that's, I mean, you know, you learn from your mistake, learn from the mistake. If trusting a person or, you know, whatever like that, like, okay, cool, I'm not going to let that happen again.
I think one of my problems with this, though, is this whole notion of all hatred is self-poison, I think is like very one-dimensional. I think you can be passively hateful.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like what being petty is, right? Like,
I mean, I'm pretty petty. I'm pretty spiteful. But I mean, for real, like, think of, oh God, like, we both hate churches. We both hate God. And for me, there probably are some, like, more deep-rooted issues a bit. But I could definitely see with you, you're probably a better example than me, where I can see you hating a church, right? Like, oh, fuck that church, fuck that religion. But you're not, like, actively scheming how to take out this church, right? Like, I think there's certain balances of you're meant to feel a certain amount of hate or anger. There's a certain amount of, like, I don't need to forgive them. I want to be angry at them, but I'm not going to let it dictate my daily life either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this, for me, it feels like a bit of a depressive benefit where I might be able to forgive a lot of things easier because I don't really care that much.
Yeah, I can see that. I understand where you're coming from on that. I do think, though, as I think about, like, do I hate churches? And
oh, you're such a softie.
No. Hear me out. Because I do feel very strongly that I think it's...
But you think they do good.
No. Hear me out.
All right.
So the thing is, like, I guess what I need to know is, like, what is hate? Right? Like,
that's a good fundamental question.
What I would probably pose, and if someone were to ask me my opinion on churches, the answer I would give them off the, you know, like, in a conversation wouldn't be like, oh, I hate churches. The answer I would give them would be like, I don't like it. And if I really thought about it, if I had the time to think about it like I just did, the term I'm coming up with is logically opposed to.
Okay, that's disagreement. So you have disagreement with churches. I would argue. So right now, you are grounding your moral axioms. We are defining terms so that everything is congruent. And what you just said to my ear is that you really don't hate churches at all. You're just fundamentally opposed.
Yeah. So here's the Google definition that came up for hate.
Can I give mine first?
Yes, you may.
I'm just curious how much it matches. I don't want to look like I'm a copycat. I would, because I was thinking about it as you asked, I feel like to hate is to want someone to suffer. It's not that I feel like you can hate someone without even disagreeing with them on principle, but that you wish they were inflicted suffering, harm, or pain.
So it's not even that intense of a definition. It is intense or passionate dislike.
What kind of a spineless dictionary is that?
I mean, I can look up the Wikipedia. Hatred is an intense negative emotional response towards certain people, things, or ideas, usually related to opposition or revulsion towards something.
So what you're saying is my definition was more violent.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Absolutely, yes.
I can live with those terms though.
So in those terms,
I don't think
yes.
you hate anything. I don't mean that in a bad way at all.
I don't think I sow enough attention into saying something like that I'm passionate about. I passionately dislike something.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say that. I would say that in the moments where things come up, I am disgusted by, or by the Google definition that I just read, like, I would say that, yeah, I do hate things, but as you pointed out, like, it's not an active hatred. Like, I'm not like stewing in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's there, and it's an evil I have to live with. That thing is there, and it's like something I can't control, right? Like,
man, this is kind of interesting because I would almost, and to preface this is a huge part of why, in general, I like you, and in particular, why I like you as a friend so much. But I don't think you understand true hatred. And I think, in general, in my day-to-day life, I don't feel like people know me because they have no idea like what it is to like truly hate things.
Now, and that makes me wonder do you think that might be because your definition of hatred is different from others?
No, because...
Do you think that might be a different emotion you're feeling?
No. I think other people might have a less violent definition because they are never feeling that. I don't think I definitely have met a lot of people who have, but I think like on average, most people are not feeling true hatred.
Now,
often.
This is an avenue that I might want to discuss more is does hatred have to involve the want for violence?
No, but it is like the biggest indicator of it.
See, like I wouldn't say that I want violence upon people that I hate, but I would say that if something were to happen to them,
you'd look the other way.
I would absolutely look the other way. I might even mini celebrate a little bit in my head.
Sure.
It's not...
I feel like that's within the normal range of what people think is hatred.
Right.
And I think...
Like, I wouldn't bring it on. I would not, I guess that's also situational, of course, but like I wouldn't, at least in my experiences, I don't seek to bring on violence upon those that I hate. It's just that like, that's where the karma thing comes in. And it's like, man, it's so much easier for me to, if I hear someone being a fucking, a homophobe in the, farmer's market, it's way easier for me to just go to my fucking car and, believe that shit's going to happen to him, or shit has already happened to him, and that's why he is the way he is, or, whatever.
Yeah, I would have, and not at all because I'm like more righteous in any way at all, but I would have a very more volatile reaction, even though most of the time that's all happening internally. And I would almost argue to the extent of, in what is probably the average realm of like hate being like disagreement, essentially, I feel like there's forgiveness between those two different levels are very different things.
Yeah, I will say, if someone was like,
if somebody hurt your family, I know, like
even I was even gonna say, like, in the position I'm playing out in my head, like, if someone was being homophobic in the way that they're just like saying dumb shit to a bunch of other fucking dum-dums, like, that's an echo chamber. It's fucking, it's ridiculous. But if someone was like actively like harassing someone or something like that, even if I didn't know them, then I would feel the want to intervene. Then it's not like I can't just, it's not like I'm going to say like, hey, I'm going to go fight this fucking guy. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, I'm going to, place myself into this to, in between the situation here, because this guy's, actively hurting people.
Sure.
But that's the different situation, I guess. But it's like, it's still like,
I'll even critique myself here. I could see a lot of times in the moment, I don't respond to those things the best. I could see a lot of times, because like cooler heads prevail often, I could see you inserting yourself more effectively than I might, because in my mind, something much smaller makes me want to like dismember their pets. Like it makes me like I'm like blackout mode and have to actively, in a lot of ways, like practice forgiveness just to like get home safely, where it's like ridiculous. And I'm much better at that, or like have matured that a lot better. But a lot of times acting appropriately is difficult because it's like flashpoint way past normal levels of like disagreement.
I like the idea of the public humiliation route where, say, someone's being belligerent or something and you
debate them in the public square.
Yeah, logically, bring them down and then put them down. And then I've noticed when you can see like videos where people are like, going into a store screaming at the people behind the counter, some shit like that. Like there's a moment, not in all of them, but in some of them, there's a moment where they realize that like they're in the wrong and they're taking it they're getting way too upset for what's going on. And they're taking it out on the wrong people. And then in that moment, they have to make a choice, and it's whether they admit that they're wrong, which they almost never do, mm-hmm. or they fucking double down on it. And then like a fucking rat in a corner, they start fighting.
Yeah, because then they are, defending themselves at that point.
Yeah.
Because they already made so many bad choices. Yeah. So what I've kind of find interesting about this is we started with forgiveness and we quickly got to hate. But I think that was good in the sense.
Yeah, I think we're setting the guidelines here.
Yeah, defining terms, grounding the axioms. So this is the next thought I have, and I think it makes sense. But I think in a lot of ways we've established you kind of have to care to be able to forgive. Like if you're too apathetic and you don't care, then forgiveness isn't even on the table. And I would say that the next like jump I could make is that as long as you could truly understand or empathize with someone, forgiveness is pretty easy. Like if you have been in similar situations, you know similar people, you have creative understanding of other people, you can almost forgive anything.
I do agree with that. Empathy is a hell of a drug. No, it absolutely does make it easier to,
and just
like you said,
imagination.
Yeah, putting yourself into the perspective of, okay, this person is upset, why? Or this person is acting the way that they are, saying the things that they are, whatever, but why? It's like, is it a cause and effect situation? Is it like something has brought this on? It didn't just start here. So like trying to decode that in a situation and being able to do it on a, like, I don't want to say a more natural level, but like doing it somewhat intuitively, being the kind of person that does that absolutely helps with forgiveness, because it's understanding. You know, if you try to find the understanding of things, then it absolutely does help to, I was going to say humanize, but that's not the right word.
I think understand is enough. Like I truly, I'm amazed by the willingness of religions and governments to be able to commit capital punishment and kill its citizens who don't obey rules. Because I feel like the position to kill an imprisoned human, which is just an animal in a fucking cage, that should be the hateful perspective. That should be my perspective about someone who has wronged me. Someone who has wronged me as a hateful person, I should want to kill them. What I don't understand is how religions or governments, groups of people coming together, can have the same perspective as a homicidal maniac, where they've done me wrong, I'm going to kill them. And it makes me very, like, confused in the sense that they're supposed to be the dispassionate, the logical, the scales of justice, and they don't act that way at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a like blatant hypocrisy, because I want to kill the person who breaks into my car, but I don't want to kill someone. I don't want to kill someone who steals from Walmart or deals drugs or whatever the fuck.
Exactly.
And I don't think it should be acceptable for me to go kill someone who breaks into my car just because I feel that way. But
crime doesn't quite
those weren't
fit the punishment.
The best analogies, but I know.
But yeah, no, I know what you mean though. It's someone who's personally like wrought something upon a person, mm-hmm. rather than someone who's wrought something upon a mega corporation. Then, you know, in any whatever, a corporation, a group that's like not.
The root of it is just, it isn't, I don't understand how conglomerations of people have came to the conclusions that they should act as the murderers.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's so backwards, where I feel like that should be a very personal, individual thing that groups of people should be talking you out of type of thing, as a general rule.
I do want to, so let me preface this though. I'm not defending the death penalty when I say this, but I think the idea, the winning, I guess, argument that would support the death penalty is the idea that by ending this person's life, they are ending this person's life because they have shown that they are not remorseful for what they did, and if they had the opportunity, they would do it again.
I have so many counters. I'm gonna.
No, I'm not saying that I'm not at all saying it's a good argument, and I'm not saying.
But I don't even think that's the argument. I think when you hear these judges or juries or people that support this, it is a righteous vengeance. This is like a God, Hammurabi's code, eye for eye type shit. You killed our children. We're gonna fucking throw you to the chair. It's that thinking. I don't even think no one thinks they're gonna escape from prison. These people, like the people that are voting for, enforcing, supporting electric chairs are not thinking this person might escape and do it again. This is a vengeance thing.
So wouldn't it be considered more cruel and malicious to, I mean, like they're going to go to jail anyways and spend time in prison regardless, but
To let them live, dude.
yeah, it's like, wouldn't it be more cruel to let them live in that system?
I think it can be, but from an outside
to
perspective.
To make them, I should say, not to let them, but to make them live in that system?
I think there's an argument there, but a prison can be very comfortable for a lot of people. And
that's true too.
And I think from the outside perspective, they don't care if the person actually suffers. They care if they get to enact what they feel is righteous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they really care if the person they're angry at suffers. They care if they get to deliver that suffering.
Yeah, that's not a bad argument. You're right on that. I think you're right on that. It's like they don't have a stat board for that info, but I wouldn't think that you're wrong.
It's all feelings anyway, too. But
yeah.
I don't even think, I just don't even think forgiveness really comes down to anything except imagination. Like, I don't understand how someone could not pretend to know what someone else feels like. Like, if I don't understand what a person, I don't know. It just seems so easy to like make imaginary worlds where you could be the person who did some harm.
Right. Yeah. And that's because you are, more of an empathetic person in that regard. If you're able to make those leaps of imagination quite easily, also you somewhat speak from experience of being in positions where you were, the quote unquote down on your luck.
Yeah. Well, I think it's something empathetic people in general struggle a lot with, is being empathetic to other people's situation, but not being empathetic to unempathetic people. Because it's really hard for me to, it's the hardest person's shoes to put my perspective in, whatever, is someone who doesn't understand something.
Yes.
Hard.
I agree with you. I've actually never thought about that before, but you're right. It's like if you can't even just try to take a step back and see a bigger picture here.
See, I can understand being super racist because I've been kind of racist when I was younger. So I can understand that easier, right? But if I had to like put myself in the shoe of like, I don't understand atheists. Like how could any heathen be that perspective is a lot harder for me to put myself in.
Mm. It's like
than a murderer or some shit.
So. Understand things like bigotry in general because I understand how where it comes from.
We've been around a lot of small-minded people.
And it's like there's such a pattern of learned behavior. I'm racking my brain right now, but I've never met a racist person who's at least one of their parents wasn't racist.
That's generally true.
Or the people around them, their friends are, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's, it's wild to think that, but yeah, no, you're right. I think it's understandable to me as well, because it's like, I don't know, you see it as you grow up of the people around you that I think when you're like very young, you don't recognize it as like being racist. It's just, that's just what it is. And this is obviously the people who are in charge of feeding you and taking care of you that are telling you things they wouldn't lie to you. That's your parents. Of course not. And then you get older and you take those things for just your experience for life too. And it's
I feel like my experience with it honestly is not that unique. I think it's something a lot of like poor white men go through because I did not start at all racist, at all. Blank slate. Did not have exposure to many people, but the world taught me to be that way because, frankly, I was not judging people for how they looked, but I got judged a lot, like violently judged for how I looked a lot, and that taught me to be a certain way, and I had to like go through the process of unlearning that. That was like really confusing as a like young teen or whatever. I think that's something that's increasingly more common and probably not talked about a lot. But anyway, I was watching a serial killer thing. It was a garbage documentary. But it was this criminologist who I could tell like was one of those types of people who was like a real studier. Like she knew the stats, she knew the latest research and approached things from a very factual basis. And she was interviewing this guy that killed a bunch of people. And I could tell, like, in theory, she's really good at what she does. But I felt like she did not understand anything that was happening. That this dude could just lie about whatever the fuck he wanted to her. And she was going to have to find a way to use the facts she knew about killers that did X, Y, and Z to try to like fit what this person said, where she was very smart, but I don't feel like she understood this particular thing well at all. And she's a professor in criminology, right? I almost feel like anyone who, I mean, I would not actually require this, but anyone who's going to get a master's in criminology should have to have the prerequisite of like a loss of sanity, a mental illness, to have a point in their life where they were willing to commit one of these crimes that they're going to study. Because she was leading this class of students to try to understand killers, and no one in that room understands hatred or those feelings or what motivated this person at all.
Right.
It's so interesting though, because you can study something forever, and if you've never felt it or you don't have a free enough imagination, you're never going to understand what the fuck you're studying.
You're only ever going to have a surface level understanding of what's going on. Like you can read the document, read the papers on it, but it's not feeling it and understanding it in that way is so much deeper, truer understanding.
And what I would say is the downside is if you can imagine a lot, you can almost understand anything, but the downside to that is you're willing to sometimes accept things more than you should, and it's, at least for myself, it's easy to get lost in that.
That, yes, I 100% back that up. I agree with that.
I can justify almost anything. I can, because I can understand why somebody would have done something, and I don't care that much, so it's pretty easy to accept pretty sketchy or like on the edge behavior, and when you do that enough, things can get blurry. Yeah.
I struggle with that for a long time, of being someone who enjoys career, like places of leadership, like being a boss, being a manager, shit like that, where, if something came up or like someone couldn't make it in that day, like short notice, like whatever, like I'm not going to fire them for it. Like I'm not going to, like, life happens and like I understand how that goes and like shit happens that way. Like you got to do what you got to do. So it was always like, I'm so understanding in a way of like, if shit happened, like if it became a regular occurrence or something, then like, we'll talk about it, we'll figure it out. But like, there's so many things that what I would say make me a good boss in that regard, but it's easy to imagine someone taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
knowing that like they're not, like it's whatever,
They're
fine.
never going to be held accountable because you're too compassionate.
Right. And there's one person I had that was like, she'd called out, she was my AM manager, and she had called out a bunch of times, and like I would have to go in, and I just accepted that. Okay, cool. So now it's happened enough times that I can't, every day, I just have to be ready to open. I have to be up and ready to go, walk out the door, and to be at work in time to open. And then if they make it in and they do their job, that's great. But if not, I still have to be ready. But when they were there, they were a fantastic employee. They did a great job, and their customers always liked her. And like, it was like, I'm not gonna get rid of her for that. Like she had a husband with health problems and other stuff. Like it was reasonable things that, she was calling out for. It wasn't like, but then like the question would be like, did this actually happen, or did, she know that I wouldn't call her bluff on it?
One of the most important things you can be in life is dependable. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're a dependable person, people will trust you, and that matters. I was supposed to be a dependable person to you, and they just repeatedly demonstrated they did not give a fuck about what your morning was like every day.
Yeah. And I realized that, like in the situation where she's taking advantage of me, like, yeah, that sucks. Obviously that's shitty. But then also if I think about like, maybe she really did have to take her husband back to the hospital. Maybe, she really did slip and fall in the ice and she can't, move her leg. Like, there is like, those were the more extreme ones, but like,
yeah, you don't want to be the person who like crucifies her when she just stumbled on her way in.
Yeah, exactly. That could happen to anybody. So it's like, okay, if this really is her life, then like you go deal with that. Like,
because your life is fucked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that sucks. Like I'm here. I can do it. Mm-hmm. Like it's begrudgingly, and like at most, like the inconvenience is like I don't get to do fucking jerk off 3 times that morning. Like whatever. Like I don't. It's just a little extra time of my day that I got to be at work. But
we all deserve to have people we can depend on.
Yeah. And that's another one, like to a fault. I recognize that I do that too, where the rules I apply for other people, I don't apply to myself. I called out of, again, begrudgingly called out of work on, because I had COVID. And it was like, I'm trying to figure out ways that like, okay, if I had COVID and it's like, obviously I can't go in. And it's like, what's the current ruling? And at the time it was like 5 days after you first catch it. Like not even after you first show symptoms, but like if you can figure out the day where, like when you got it, like who you were with that also had it.
That was bunk as fuck though.
5 days after that, then you can go back. The problem is 5 days after I went back, I felt like, I felt like absolute trash. Mm-hmm. It fucking wrecked me. So I did not want to call out of work, but I did. And then I felt bad for it. And everyone else at work was like, oh no, we were worried about you. We were like, if Rich isn't coming to work, like he must be really suffering. It's like,
well, I'm like starting to feel more and more with age that too much empathy is weakness.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure. It's a blessing and a curse. It's how I've always looked at it.
It's a real double-edged sword.
It can make life way easier if you're able to talk to people and understand situations in a much deeper way. It can help you out of bad situations. It can help you connect with people on a much deeper level. And like you said, it can actually absolutely be a weakness where you're way easier to take advantage of.
Now, if we look at, do you know what game theory is?
No, I don't think I do.
I'll be honest, my understanding of it is pretty superficial, but it's the whole like American Psycho mentality where like everything in life is a game, and it's often like business people like you. Where it's you fuck your enemies and you get ahead and like you analyze people, manipulate people, use confident, like that type of thing.
Yeah, it's fucking douchebag Sigma male shit, right?
Basically, but I feel like if too much empathy is a weakness, right? You're vulnerable. People can take advantage of that. I would almost, I don't know if I would or not, I would almost argue that if your hatred or anger or lack of forgiveness for another person is not harming you and it's passive, there's no true benefit to forgiving someone. Because if you were to forgive them externally and let them off of the hook, you lose some level of like game or ownership or like a hook in them. Where like even if you were to forgive people, it would be better to do that purely internally and almost never externally, unless by like expressing forgiveness you were to gain a benefit from.
What I can see where that could work for people, but what bothers me about that is that you're
cruel.
Gaining. Yeah, but what mostly bothers me about it is that if that's what motivates you, if that's what like drives you and can drive you to go further in life, you are relying on other people. You're relying on other people for your own strength, rather than finding it inside of yourself.
Well, ignore the whole philosophy it's attached to. Let's just like keep the focus narrow to forgiveness. What benefit is there to express forgiveness to the person you're forgiving? Unless you want them back in your life or there's a direct benefit, why would you ever outwardly forgive someone? That's all. Just that scope.
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is it's a pettiness where, I mean, like if it's like a a national court thing or something, like it's a publicly known thing, then like that could be important in that regard because it
holds them accountable. But let's say it's personal. Someone who fucked you over hardcore. They fucked your girlfriend in high school. Mm-hmm. And you have long since forgotten, don't give a fuck about it, could easily just like give them, the courtesy nod next time you see them. Just to, barely express like, hey, I get it, whatever. I'll let you,
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold you accountable for this small thing 10 years later. But instead, every time you see him, you snuff them. Even though you can tell they're actively trying to earn your forgiveness. I would argue, unless you want something from that person, there's really no benefit of giving them that.
I'm gonna say the only benefit I can think of, again, I think is like a pettiness where it's like, I want you to know that this doesn't bother me. It sounds cheesy to say it that way, but like that's the only thing I can think of that would be a benefit is like if you are trying to get back into their head in a way and saying that I want you and I want the people around you to know.
But is that true forgiveness? I think I could argue, I don't know if that is true forgiveness.
I don't know if that is, but it doesn't mean that you don't have true forgiveness. I mean, I can argue that... If you're still
trying to hurt them a different way while forgiving them for something else, I don't know. I feel like that's a loophole. It's the spite loophole.
Well, with the article I read earlier, they said it's not to gloss over the seriousness of the offense against you. It does not mean forgetting or condoning or excusing it.
You just want them to feel like shit all the time.
Yeah, and it doesn't release them from accountability.
I think those are different things, though, because I think not releasing them for accountability would be...
You're right. No,
if someone asked you if they fucked your girlfriend, you'd be like, yeah, they did. But constantly almost be able to rub their face in the I forgave him a long time ago, then I don't know if that is forgiveness. I feel like there's room to.
You have a good argument there. I like that.
I think there's room to wrestle in that case specific, because I think it depends on what the crime was.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the other one, is like that situation can change depending, and it's like there's so many subtle variables in that.
But I think for myself, as a very general rule, I try to live by never forgiving anyone.
I don't think that's healthy.
See, I disagree.
As a general rule in life, I don't think that's healthy.
No, because here's my thought. Every single person that's ever fucked me over to a substantial amount, not the guy who flicks me off on the bus or some dumb shit, but somebody that's actually fucked me over. Like someone that has cheated on me, whatever, stolen my shit, stole my drugs, whatever. I'm never going to forgive them, but I'm not, like, I don't want to think about that. I'm not going to keep the tally on that, but I think it's important you don't forgive them, because that is how you keep them accountable and protect yourself. There's no advantage to me hunting down the people that wronged me to forgive them. And I understand it can be internal forgiveness, but I never want to look at someone who's fucked me over favorably. Why would I ever choose to be like, oh, I understand what they did. I do understand what they did, but that doesn't mean I have to offer them any sympathy, because they fucked over me.
That's the thing, is if you're looking at forgiveness as offering them sympathy, and I would agree that it is in the way that when you are being understanding of someone's situation, but I don't so much think that that's direct sympathy. I think that's being intelligent, emotionally intelligent enough to read that. I think that that you are actually forgiving, because you're not actively searching to, find retribution. It's not something that's, living in your head rent free.
See, and that's why I feel like there almost has to be two definitions, because it is very separate. But what if you... Sorry, this cat is drinking water so loud. Jesus Christ. It's going to slurp down a whole gallon of stale, gross-ass water. But to truly forgive them, let's say you don't externally forgive them, but internally, you let it go. You've moved on. You understand why they did. Yeah. We could qualify as that is forgiveness. Let's say you reconnect with that person and they fuck you over again. My theory would not be that you start from base level. We're picking right back up where at the last time you fucked me over. And I feel like that would mean you never did truly forgive them, because if you did, you wouldn't be holding them accountable in the same way for old shit you forgave them for, right? Like in an active relationship with a partner, if you truly forgave them for being late for a date or some dumb shit last week, the next time they're late for a date, you can't be like, you've been late 2 times,
Yeah. So here's let me give you an old adage.
I love
fool
old
me
adage.
Once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
See, I feel like it's shame on you both times for getting fooled the first.
If you're willing, it's one thing to forgive someone, but if you're giving them a second chance, I feel like that's also different, because forgiving someone doesn't mean that...
give them a second chance with a strike on the books?
That's what I'm saying, is you don't have to do that. That's if you are choosing to do that, then you are forgetting, not just forgiving.
I feel like full forgiveness would mean you truly erase that first strike.
No, I mean that's still it's not forgetting though, because erasing it would be forgetting.
I don't,
and
think
that's
so.
Not the same thing. I think if you're forgiving someone, it's like, look, I'm not gonna seek to hurt you or find retribution, but I'm not going to fuck with you anymore. I'm not like, we're not cool. You don't have to be like friendly with the person anymore for it to be a forgiveness.
I feel like this only is really demonstratable in the smaller instances, because with bigger things, there very rarely is true forgiveness. But in a relationship, in a relationship, gets toxic. Your girlfriend says some completely out of pocket crazy shit.
Yeah, you tell her to start making baked goods, and then she says some wild shit back to you.
No, for this example, you did nothing wrong. You're a golden boy, and she cuts you real deep right across the face. Right now, let's say you do truly love her, and she does express she's sorry, and you do truly forgive her, right? That happens in relationships all the time. People forgive each other each way. I feel like if you truly forgive them, you do kind of have to forget. I don't feel like you can forgive them, but next time it happens, you're like, hey, you've done this before. Because then you didn't truly forgive them.
Remembering something that happened isn't saying that you don't forgive them for it happening.
I kind of feel like I'm starting to feel more and more it is.
I don't think you understand what forgiveness is then. I think you are adding them together.
Have you ever truly forgiven someone?
I'm sure that I have. I'm trying to think of an example that's meaningful in any way to this discussion. But what I can give you one. I don't want to give super details because
sure,
but someone that I worked with that on multiple occasions has given me, if I was in charge of a situation, if I was the one making the call, they would have been fired the first time, not let alone the second time and the third time something happened. But it's something that, like, I'm not going to forget that this can happen with this person. I'm not going to forget that this behavior is not only possible, but it's happened on multiple occasions. So we could even consider it to be a pattern. I'm not going to forget that, but I will forgive those past trespasses.
I would argue that's not true
to
forgiveness.
Work with them.
I would argue that's not true forgiveness. And we have to get out of work analogies.
That's all my life is, Stephen.
I know. I would argue true forgiveness.
I would like to dive deeper into that, but first, Stephen, let me tell you and our listeners about the great value you can get right now in your local grocer's freezer section. Banquet Brown and Serve sausage links are now available in a 2-pound package for you and the family to enjoy.
Trolled on my own podcast.
Available in original and Vermont maple flavor. That's 50 sausage links for about $6.99 at most locations. Oh my God! Remember, when your life is falling apart, choose Banquet.
This out. No, we're not doing fake ads. Anytime I hear that on a podcast, I switch the podcast. True forgiveness would mean you let that person cut you across the face as many times as they need to. I would argue that's true forgiveness. That is the Zen muck, right? Jesus turned his face as many times as he need to. I don't care how many times.
Making yourself a martyr doesn't mean, or being forgiving doesn't mean making yourself into a martyr.
Actually, it is.
I don't think it is.
What did the martyr do? He forgave all the people who killed them. That's why they're saints.
That doesn't mean that forgiving people makes you a martyr. If the martyr forgave people, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that what's the word of causation? It's not that. It's a logical fallacy.
No, I don't think so. Because I feel like to ever truly forgive, you have to be willing to be hurt repeatedly because you are being weak. I would not say that is a good thing to do. But I do feel like if you're ever truly willing to forgive people for things, you're willing to suffer any harm to do that. Or else you're not truly forgiving them. If I feel like the forgiveness, but I'm keeping that strike on the books, is not forgiveness. And I'll argue, I don't think being super forgiving is a good thing. And there are very few times, if any, that I have ever shown true forgiveness. And I don't think most people do either.
Let me ask you this then. What would you call it when if you're saying that there is no difference, but there can't be a separation between forgiveness and forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
What would you call it then when you move past the situation with somebody?
Tolerance. Patience and tolerance.
And so I would argue that those are things that you would need to have
to forgive.
To forgive.
I would also agree with it, but I don't think that is forgiveness. Right? My ex forgave me for using heroin, but next time I used heroin, she left me. I don't think that's forgiveness. That's a great example. I don't blame her either, but that's a great example.
Forgave you for the action that you took. And I think...
But she clearly didn't.
I feel like in that situation then, you said you used heroin again and then she left you.
Yeah.
So I would argue that she forgave you and took the chance that this could happen again. She did exactly. She didn't forget. And then when you did it again, what that told her then was that this is going to be a pattern. I'm not patient enough to forgive again.
This is semantics. To be super clear, I'm not bitter. I don't blame her. But
right.
But I do think that isn't true forgiveness, because I feel like if you're truly willing to forgive someone, that you understand why they did it, you're accepting it, you tolerated it. I feel like if you were going to be able to truly forgive that, you would understand why it would happen again. Because if you don't understand why a heroin addict would continue to use heroin, then you never really forgave them. That's fundamentally what I'm getting at.
Now, and I don't know the details of the situation, so I'm going to put a hypothetical one.
I should have used a different example. I didn't really want to bring that up, but it's a good example, though.
I'll change it because I need a hypothetical anyways.
Sure.
Assuming...
Fucking banquet. Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
I really hope that you leave that in with your cries over top of it.
Screaming over a banquet commercial. It was very funny.
I worked very hard on writing some good catchphrases. Perusing the banquet product page.
Now, real quick.
Yeah.
We don't have to necessarily agree on it, but do you kind of get what I'm the angle I'm going for?
I get, so because I'm empathetic, I get the angle. I do understand the angle that you're coming from, but also, like in many of your arguments for things, your perspectives on things, you tend to lean towards extremes in a way that I wouldn't say most things, but a lot of things are, it's either this or it's this. It's either this or it's not. Instead of there is, I wouldn't even say a spectrum in between, but there is.
It's binaries versus grays.
Yeah.
You sound like my therapist. I understand that, but I feel like I've spent so much time trying not to think just that way, because in the past, it would have been dramatically like a stronger contrast or juxtaposition, like radically so. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's pretty fair to have the argument that if someone is going to hold you accountable for things they already forgave, then they don't truly understand, that they never truly forgave. They just decide to forget temporarily. So
I would argue that in a situation where someone forgives you for something,
it's like conditional forgiveness.
It should need to be discussed, I think, depending on the situation. But
sure,
I think sometimes it's in the way that when you forgive somebody for something, it's because they did something that hurt them, or that something that hurt you, right? When you forgive someone for something, the idea being that if you're going to continue to, try to work out the same relationship that you had prior and to move forward with it, the idea being that you don't want them to do that again, or you don't expect them to do that again. You would, because they know that they made a mistake, they did something intentionally or made a mistake that hurt you in the relationship. When that same thing happens again, when that person wrongs you again, then it would make sense for you to then say, like, okay, I forgave them for that one, but I can't keep doing this. I can't keep letting them do this to me.
I understand that, but I think you could still forgive someone and leave them, or like forgive someone and not want to be close to them. I feel like that's conflating two different things.
No, and I agree with that. I'm not saying that that's a necessity. Mm-hmm. I absolutely think that there's times when there's my own relationships
love
where
from
it's
a
like,
distance. Yeah,
it's I can't say it's love at all for sure, but it's like I forgive you. I'm not going to.
I never want to see your stupid fucking face again.
Yeah, it's like I think that's still fair. It's
I do too.
It's like disagree. I don't fucking want to look at you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to. I don't want. I hardly want to talk about you at all. But some of it's a wild story, and I like telling it. But that's not going to be the thing. Like, I'm not going to live in an anger. I'm not going to live in hate of you. Because I just don't have the energy to put forward into that. It doesn't mean that much to me. And so I have forgiven, this person, but I didn't reach out to her and say, hey, I forgive you, because I don't want to talk to her anymore.
I think it's fair. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Everyone says good parents. Let's frame it with bullshit ethics. Good parents love their kids unconditionally, or that true love is unconditional. And I think that is absolute, utter fairy tale garbage. And that love is inherently and supposed to be conditional. But I would argue forgiveness is not meant to be.
It's not meant to be conditional?
Correct. Love is, but forgiveness is not.
I'm gonna need a clear example if I'm gonna.
Husband and wife, married 30 years. Mm-hmm. Wife finds husband's Safari history. She had just been spying on his Chrome history, and then she found his Safari.
You gotta look into this. Yeah, you gotta look into the Safari history. That's
how the cops miss Casey Anthony. Okay,
is it really?
It actually is.
God damn.
No, dude, she was only using Firefox to look up things related to killing her baby, which included Google searches like how to make what's the gas that you put on the rag and it knocks ether?
Chloroform?
Yeah, chloroform ether. She was looking up how to make it and how to duct tape her baby. And she only was doing this in Firefox because the family used Chrome or some shit. And she never cleared the search history. And the IT wing of this shitty sheriff's office or whatever didn't know how to check browser history or what this application was. So they only checked Chrome. And if they would have had that evidence, they almost definitely would have had her for murder.
Wow.
And they found that out like 6 months, a year later. And at that point, they couldn't retry her. Double jeopardy. So that's legitimately part of how she got off. She didn't clear her history and they checked the wrong browser.
That's stunning to me.
Yeah, it's like a
That's
case.
So wild.
It's a case study that they look at a lot of like police bloopers and investigation or whatever.
The bloopers makes it sound. Yeah, exactly. God damn.
But, all right, wife checks other browser history, finds out husband is the Golden State Killer. They've been together 30 years. She finds out this dude's been murdering and raping this whole time. She, eventually reports him, and he goes to prison forever. And in court, she's, shaking her fist at him and giving him the what for, and that's the end of their marriage, right? Yeah. That is love that was thought as unconditional. We love each other forever, no matter what you do. We love each other, except a bunch of conditions that go unspoken, like killing and raping.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty conditional.
I can say that is a pretty good condition. I'll give you that.
That's love. Everyone says, I love you no matter what. You love your kids no matter what. Except when your kid is a pedophile. Except when your kid kills one of your other kids. Except when your kid, like X, Y, Z. They're all unspoken, normal conditions in love, in relationships. That didn't use this drug again. That's a condition. I understand that. The love is supposed to be that way. We all kind of pretend that it's unconditional, but it's supposed to have conditions. It's a contract we're subconsciously or silently agreeing to.
Yeah.
But I would argue forgiveness is not meant to be that way, or else they don't pair right.
I mean, I guess I would go back to the point that
because forgiveness is the bridge between love and hate.
I think that sounds really spicy than good, like a good sound bit, but I don't think it's true.
I can make up some bullshit to justify it. Don't worry.
We can come up with some real good metaphors for it.
If I'm empathetic enough, I can bullshit anything, Rick.
Let me say something real quick. I had a good couple hour conversation with my niece the other day, and she kept making metaphors out of things like we fucking do all the time.
Hell yeah.
And I was just unprompted of her, and I was like, I'm so proud of you. Welcome to the make everything into a fucking metaphor club.
Analogy land.
Yeah, exactly. And you start getting into something and you realize okay, it's falling apart past this line, but you can see why I think bowling is like water buffalo hunting, right?
I think it's the best way to visually communicate with people.
It is, and of course there's limits on it, but yeah, I thought that was funny.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
So I think with the forgiveness conditions thing, but who, I mean, I guess just like in love, who sets the conditions? And I feel like you, as the forgiver,
get to set the conditions. And it's because if it is truly an act that you're doing for yourself, and I do believe that it is, then yeah, then you have the conditions that you need to meet. So in the argument where the woman's husband, she finds out he's the Golden State Killer, they're separated, and I'm sure it's a rough many, many years where she has to process many emotions of where maybe they did have a very loving and what felt like a very normal family life, and things were all peachy keen, and we'll say that they did, and then she has to unpack that, what she's, the person that she loved was capable of this, and that, she... How does it reflect on her?
Well, no, I wasn't going to say
she murdered a killer.
I was going to say, she has to then separate that person that she loved, or I guess
what they did.
Yeah, either separate. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be separate. It would be trying to recognize that they are the same. It's not separating them. I'm sorry that I misspoke. It's combining them and recognizing that this is the same person that did this.
Combining the id and the shadow.
Yeah. The shadow id. In doing that, let's say it's 20 years later, and it's something that's obviously plagued their mind for years. Their entire life of what they thought was going so well was ripped asunder, and they have had time to try to build a new life, and for whatever they gain into that, they find that it's still something that bothers them, and they want to move past it. So they forgive. I don't know that conditions are even a requisite for forgiveness. I can understand to say that.
Point. I have a very abstract rebuttal that I have not thought through, but
I can't wait to hear it.
I think we might find some common ground here. So, the wife, let's say the wife gets to the point where she knows in her heart she still loves him, right? Mm-hmm. That regardless of these conditions, she still feels love, even though some of those conditions have been broken, right?
Right.
That enough other conditions or whatever the opposite still remain, and there's still love there. So she wants to forgive him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we all have felt times where we logically forgive someone, but emotionally can't. There's that incongruency between our brain and our heart a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's an argument to be made that because forgiveness is not meant to be conditional, that it could be something that is not in our direct control, where we get to be the one who makes those conditions. There might be part of it that is something outside of ourselves or our direct control, where even if I want to forgive someone, sometimes I can't, or even when I don't want to forgive someone, I can't help but doing it.
Mm.
I feel like there's something to that too.
I can definitely say that it's...
Hence the bridge between love and hate.
I feel like it's... I can definitely see it being a subconscious. I mean, we've talked many times on this show about the weird defense mechanisms that our brain puts in place to shield us from more hurt, more mental, emotional trauma.
Like time warping with age.
Yeah, or the derealization, depersonalization stuff. That's things that our brain just does. And it's a survival tactic. It's to help preserve you and your mental state. At least that's what it thinks it's doing. The idea that... Sorry, let me think of a way to phrase this.
Take your time. I'm a little lost in the fog of this now too. But I feel like if that wife ever truly wanted to forgive that killer of a husband, they would have to fully let go of that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where I was trying to find the phrasing for it. The concept that she has now this person that she loves that, despite doing these heinous acts, she wants, whether you want to reconcile something or not, even, the idea being that they do, the trying to forgive someone mentally. It doesn't even have to be that severe of a situation. When you forgive someone mentally, I'd say it's like a first steps into, you want to, the intention is there. And even if you can't completely let go of it emotionally, it's a sign that you're trying to tell your brain to go that way. You're trying to tell your heart to go that way.
I think I get where we're headed, but I think the point is even if your toes are in the pool of forgiveness, you haven't fully forgave.
And I would agree. I would agree with that. With that situation, I would say then that is not true forgiveness, but you're trying.
If she truly forgave him, she would be fully accepting in him killing a bunch more women.
She'd be trying to help him bury the next body.
Exactly. And that's
a ride or die. And that's
but that's kind of my point, where I don't think that forgiveness would be good. How do I frame? Because she could still, because she should no longer love him, but she still might. But the forgiveness, she could still love him, but not forgive him. I mean,
yes.
I guess she could do it either way, but most likely you would still love that person and not be able to forgive them, because you're not going to forgive them. I think that's let them kill more people.
That's what happens more, would be a more common occurrences.
Yeah,
like,
could
I still
be
love you,
versa.
but I can't forgive you.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I feel like that happens in family all the time. And
yeah.
I personally think that's a bunch of horse shit too. Whoever said you have to love your family members is fucking wrong.
They were an orphan. Because they clearly did not come from a family.
There's I forget what the fuck the quote comes from.
Orphans can have true love. I don't think so.
That's the next research topic. Can orphans truly ever love?
Very sorry to all of our orphan listeners who survived on Banquet all these years.
We truly apologize for all the kids that are listening to this at the orphanage.
Dying of throat cancer from my secondhand smoke. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, so what I was getting to is, the quote was always, you don't have to like your family, but you always have to love them. And it's like, first of all, that's horse shit.
Don't love you nor forgive you, bitch.
Yeah, I don't fucking love you. I don't like you. You're a piece of shit, and I don't need you in my life. And I think it's fair to say to certain people that, are related to you by blood, that doesn't make you a bad person. If this person's a piece of shit, you don't need that shit going on in your life. Fuck that person. You can choose your family, and those people are going to be better to you than.
Here's this could be the last leg of the marathon we're running. What do you call where you pass off the baton?
Relay.
This is the last leg of the relay of this great marathon of a podcast.
That's the title of this episode: the great marathon of a podcast.
Why would you choose not to forgive a family member?
I mean, experience, right? Like, if I feel like, at least from my perspective, the first inclination is like, you forgive them the first time, you probably forgive them the second time. And then, like, when it gets into, like, third territory, that's when it's like, depending on the circumstances, you can say like, it's like, are you doing this because you don't have control over it? Is this a choice that you're making that I'm just allowing you to do? And that's when it becomes, it gets into the unforgivable territory.
I'll preface by, this is imaginary, abstract shit. I kind of feel like if someone's point of view was the perspective that hate is a poison you drink yourself, or that by not forgiving you're harming yourself type of thing, then there would be no valid excuse not to forgive someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that perspective, I wish we had names for it at this point, but that perspective would be like how I felt was the weak side, it would be, if they think forgiveness is always good, then it would be incongruent not to forgive the family member. Fuck, I'm lost as fuck. I'm off the track. I'm on the football field. I'm trying to run laps and I'm lost.
Yeah, you're going the wrong way on the track.
I'm at the wrong school. My mom dropped me off at the wrong parking lot.
You're running straight down the middle of the green in the middle of the track there. I think what you're trying to say, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that if forgiving is the most helpful thing to yourself,
which I don't agree it is, but it often is looked at that way.
If it's looked at that way, and it's saying that you, it is the better choice that you can make for your overall health in the long run.
Right.
That it doesn't make sense to not forgive.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at. Yes.
So I would argue that forgiving, I think this goes back to, we were talking about your version of true forgiveness versus the other, is you can forgive someone and just not be involved with them anymore. You can forgive someone and then say, all right, well, I'm never letting you borrow shit from me because you always fucking steal it. I'm not, I'm never gonna, I'm not going to let my kids hang around with, you because like you're a fucking bad influence and you're teaching them how to steal and shit. Like,
thank you. You just got me to where I was trying to go. I would argue that is not forgiveness, but you still love them. You're choosing not to forgive them, but you still choose to love them.
I'm not saying you choose to love them either. I don't see how that's still love. If it's like, I'm not associating myself with you anymore.
But you still
want anything
care.
to do with you.
That's part of what you just said, is that you still care, but you weren't going to like trust them anymore. You weren't going to forget.
I don't remember any part of that where I said I still care about you.
Maybe I
think you added that. That's like some Freudian shit you just did. I think the idea of forgiveness does not
need.
Thing
applies.
I don't think it has to, though. I don't think that continuing to love someone. I mean, we just decided that you can still love someone and not forgive them. And I think that you can cease to love someone and also forgive them. And it doesn't have to be a grandiose act of proclaiming that you forgive them. It's just,
I get where we're at.
I really do think that it can just be as simple as, it's some shit that happened in the past and it hasn't been a problem in a while and you've moved on and who knows what the fuck they're doing. But
I think what that actually is still loving someone but not forgiving them. And I think it's okay for people to acknowledge that, because that's what's actually happening.
I still don't see where the love comes in that. Because I'm not saying that you're involved with that person at all. I'm saying you cut ties with them entirely. And in the situation I'm talking about is you cut ties with them entirely. You don't want them around. If they come around, you're not
I feel
trying to help them.
You're gaslighting me. Am I really mishearing you this hard?
Yes, I really think you are. I'm saying that you cut ties entirely with people and you tell them, I don't want to be involved with you. I'm not going to be.
I feel like what I'm hearing is you saying you're doing that because you don't forgive them, but I'm assuming that in this situation with a family member that the love is inherent. I think that's why I'm mishearing.
So here's where I'm at. Picture a situation, you've multiple back and forth with someone where you try to make things work with a family member and they just time after time after time again, it doesn't have to fit, friend, whatever. They just fuck you over each time. And you're like, what? Can't do it anymore. It's a pattern. I'm putting myself at risk. I'm enabling this behavior. Not going to let it happen.
I understand where I'm mishearing you. Okay.
So in that moment, you haven't forgiven them yet. And you are saying that I can't, there is no love here anymore.
See, I don't understand that.
See, that's for me. It's like I don't have.
You
if you're
give up
gonna-
love that quickly? Because I feel like for me, I clearly
I'm not
still
saying it's
love
quickly.
them.
I'm saying I'm saying you've given them multiple chances to try to make shit right. You're like to not steal your shit, to not, treat you shitty.
I just realized now I think love is also love is
You are so mixed up today.
no. I think love doesn't it. Fuck. It's conditional by choice, but it can be unconditional.
So there are definitely stories of like the example you gave earlier is like your kid kills somebody or something, and like there are parents that are taking the
Still
fall
love
for their
them.
kids.
Yeah.
And shit.
So with love, the conditions are you can opt in. It's like a shitty contract
It's like
that your banker.
it's like a subscription service.
Yeah, you can opt in and opt out on the conditions, but forgiveness should be fully unconditional. Because what I'm hearing in my mind, if I have a family member or a friend do that to me, at that point, they fucked me up. They've stabbed me in the back a million times. Let's say I actively hate them. Like I wish them harm. To me, I still know I love them.
And see, that's insane to me.
You don't feel like the hate and love can happen simultaneously while not
hate and
forgiving?
love are not opposites. They're very close to each other, right? They're just passionate.
I think the
difference between
but they're on the same side of the color wheel.
That doesn't make any sense. The difference
Don't
between
make me ground this one.
the opposite of, I would argue, each of those is indifference.
Of
not caring at all.
Or
of having
caring
no
too
emotional
much.
feeling at all. Because both of them are high levels of passion, whether it's one way or the other.
I'm with you so far.
I would say that the opposite of either one of those is a lack of feeling at all. So I would say that hatred is still a very passionate relationship that you have with this person.
It's often
it's not love, but it's but also
but they can overlap.
I wouldn't fault a single person if they were repeatedly fucked over by somebody, hurt in whatever way, emotionally, physically, verbally, whatever, and then made the decision, Jesus fucking Christ, that they don't want to interact with this person anymore. I would say it's like disowning is a big word, but like it's not, because it's not like disowning your family. I feel like that's a weird word, but it's like
it's not
because they're still related to you, but you just don't have to love them.
That is disowning. Here's my last. Here's my last question. Couple questions. Family member, loved one keeps fucking you over and over again. I think what you're saying is that you forgive them and then choose to not love them anymore.
I'm saying that the way that you say that makes it sound like you are forgiving them first. And
it doesn't matter the order.
Yeah.
Irrelevant.
What I'm saying is, if you feel that way, you don't have to love them. You can still, but I'm saying that you don't have to love them. You don't have to feel like you do, and you don't have to feel bad if you don't.
I think that's a good point.
If you feel later on in life that you're harboring anger still on the situation, and you choose to forgive them in your own heart, then that's okay, that's fine, and it's normal, and you don't have to reconcile with them to do it. That's all I'm saying. But also what that means is, even if you forgive them for it, that doesn't mean that if they come knocking at your door tomorrow, that you're going to just arms open wide let them on in.
I think you do if you love them.
But I'm saying you don't have to love them to forgive them. You don't have to love anybody to forgive them.
Yeah. I agree. I just really I really feel like it seems like you're leaning towards, it's not all the time, or it's case specific or whatever, but it seems like in general, your go-to would be to forgive people. It would be to no longer love them and forgive them, where it seems like my go-to would be to still love them and not forgive them. I feel like that's where I'm mishearing you at times, and we're finding our difference. Because, and this may just be a matter of aesthetic or approach or how we experience love or the specific scenarios we're going to in our heads.
You're saying that my approach would be more to not love them and then forgive later on?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I would agree with that.
And I'm going the exact opposite.
My argument would also be that it doesn't have to be love. It could even just be like if, coworkers, other whatever, just fucking assholes in that you meet in life. It's not even a lack of love. It's a lack of respect. It's a lack of caring about your It's like, I don't care about your well-being. Like
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That might make sense because I don't know if I can substitute love for those things and how I'm looking at it currently. Like if I'm always thinking love is like the love that's coming to my mind for like people I truly care about, then this love forgiveness thing might not apply to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. I
don't know if it can sub out or not.
I feel like people put a lot of weight in blood, and I feel like that weight should be put on emotions and actions instead of blood.
Absolutely.
I think blood carries no weight that deserves recognition outside of emotion and action.
I kind of went through this thing where like blood wasn't important to me at all. Like I chose my family, made my own brothers type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then most of those people fucked me over hardcore. Mm-hmm. Right. And I learned that, choosing your family type of thing doesn't necessarily mean shit either. And that in the end...
Oh yeah, you can still choose people that are going to fuck you over. But
right. And in the end, I think to your point, it's what it really comes down to is regardless of if they're blood or not, or whatever the fuck dumbass term you want to call them, it's, what their actions prove over the course of time.
Right. It's like I would still choose, if I'm choosing my family, I still choose most of my family.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's only a couple bad apples in the bunch that I don't want to fuck with. I don't want nothing to do with.
I feel like you're going to forgive people, though.
I'm sure eventually. I'm sure I'll reach that point. I'm not particularly ready there yet. Like, yeah, I'm at the stage we were talking about earlier. Like in my head, like I can see it being a healthy thing. I'm not so much forgiven, but I've decided that like the best decision they ever did was, leave and shit like that. But I don't, or the best thing they ever did for the rest of the people around them was leave. I guess I should say that, not the best decision they made, but.
No, I understand what you mean. I wonder if there's an element of like, this is not, I'm not speaking clearly at this point, but if there's two types of people, the true hatred experiencers and the non-true hatred experiencers, I wonder if people who naturally don't go to true hate, if forgiveness is inevitable with time. Like I wonder if, how like the INRI formula, like if they're like the specific amount of pain requires a specific amount of sacrifice. I wonder, I'm sure, we could bullshit write one, but I wonder if there could be an interesting formula to the like lack of hatred plus time, X amount of time always equals forgiveness or not. I'm just I don't know, rambling.
Yeah.
It's a thought.
It's a thought. I wouldn't imagine so much that there is. I feel like I would say it's probably higher in a group of people that if that don't experience violent hatred on a regular occasion or have experienced it at all. I would say that, that group is probably a little bit higher, but I wouldn't say that it's inevitable.
Yeah, and that's why they're abstract metaphysical formulas.
Yeah, that's fucking theoretical psychologist, Steven.
I'm trying to be better at listening, which I'm not always the best at when I get revved up. But I'm trying to, as you were speaking, I'm trying to figure out how you're shifting the Overton window of my perspective on forgiveness. Because I feel like you're showing me something, but I don't fully know how to incorporate it into what I see naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to think about that a bit.
Those kind of things require introspection and time, and we can all be patient, and we'll just give you some silence while you work that out on the podcast.
Well, how about this?
And you can't take longer than 3 hours though, because.
How about this? I have to pee so bad. I hope you'll forgive me, dear audience, but I'm ready to get out of here.
All right. That sounds like a good plan to me. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Yeah, thanks, John. We're super psyched to have the Sycamore dub last episode.
Fuck yeah, that was so good.
I need to do his. We got a concept together for his album cover.
We should just drop more music in the middle of an episode.
I'm all for that.
That was such a good.
Hard to get stuff.
I texted you when I was on my way home when I was listening to it, and I stopped and I got home, but I was like, the song had come on, and I was just sitting in my driveway listening to it because I didn't want to get out of my car yet. It was so good.
Dude, I feel that way. Anytime we have music, I always get sucked in, but we need stuff. If you guys are listening and make visual arts or music, hit us up. Yeah, I'm stuck on art lately, but we're trying to figure out an album cover for his album because it's going to be super cool. We got a couple fun topics on the way, for sure.
Fuck yeah.
Netflix just dropped a Waco documentary. Might be worth taking a little gander for the little goose.
Yeah. Oh, make sure to check out the show page at Trashcast on Instagram for news and art from the show, and also check out Facebook for the memes.
Facebook for the memes. If you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZXCX.
Shout out to our sponsor this week, Banquet Foods. When everything else fails,
once again,
and you're ready to end it all, remember to choose Banquet. That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.